If you have ever sat in an airport terminal staring out at rain, hammering the runway, and silently begged the clouds to clear before boarding, you will understand this story. Flying through storms is rarely pleasant, but most of the time the bad weather eventually moves away and the flight ends without drama. On October 25, 2022, however, a Singapore Airlines flight from London to Singapore discovered what happens when the storm does not leave. Instead, it grew stronger, blocked every option, and forced the pilots into one of the most stressful fuel management situations imaginable. A promising start. It began as an ordinary long-haul evening. The crew for Singapore Airlines Flight 319 arrived at Heathrow, ready to take their Boeing 777-300ER back to Singapore. Departure was scheduled for just after 8 p.m. London time, and because Singapore is 8 hours ahead, the flight would land the next afternoon. A schedule pilots usually love because it allows for an early finish back home. The weather briefing looked mostly kind. The route across Europe and Asia was expected to be smooth, and although thunderstorms were forecast for Singapore later in the day, they were predicted to be temporary. Visibility at Singapore was expected to remain above the minimum legal requirement for landing. Even the alternates, Paya Lebar Air Base, Kuala Lumpur International, and Sinai International, were forecast to have showers but still stay within safe limits. Confident in the plan, the pilots accepted the calculated fuel load of 106,164 kilograms. This covered the trip itself, contingency fuel for minor deviations, and enough to fly to an alternate if required. No extra fuel was added. More fuel means more weight, higher burn, and higher cost, so crews avoid it when the forecast looks reasonable. The captain was a 55-year-old veteran with 13,400 total hours, more than 10,000 of those on the 777. His first officer was younger but fully qualified with over 2,200 hours on the same type. The plan was straightforward. The first officer would fly while the captain monitored. The passengers boarded without incident. The aircraft taxied smoothly, and at 8:06 p.m., Flight 319 thundered down Heathrow's runway 27R and climbed into the night. A smooth cruise until it wasn't. For the next 12 hours, everything unfolded beautifully. Air traffic control gave the crew shortcuts through European airspace, saving both time and fuel. The aircraft cruised serenely and approached Singapore about 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Fuel remaining was projected to be a healthy 7 tons on landing, well above the 3 tons legally required as a final reserve that should never be touched except in emergencies. Then the weather started to unravel. The aviation waiting room. As the aircraft entered Singapore's airspace, controllers initially cleared it for an ILS approach to runway 20 right. But thunderstorms began flaring up, and tailwinds on that runway climbed beyond safe limits. Controllers switched the active runway, a change that forced arriving traffic into holding patterns. Racetrack-shaped loops where planes wait their turn. Holding is normal in busy airspace, but it costs fuel, and thunderstorms can complicate timing because they do not always behave as forecast. The crew checked their situation carefully. The onboard computer, aware of their alternate fuel requirements, displayed how long they could safely hold before they would have to divert. One by one, the planned alternates were being swallowed by the same storm system. Paya Lebar and Sinai were under heavy weather, and even Kuala Lumpur, much farther away, was threatened. Only Hang Nadim Airport on Batam Island, just south of Singapore, appeared clear at that moment. The captain began considering it as an emergency backup, understanding fuel and why it matters. Every commercial pilot lives by strict fuel rules. A flight's fuel load includes taxi fuel for ground operations, trip fuel to reach the destination, contingency fuel for unexpected route changes, alternate fuel in case the destination becomes unavailable, and finally, a legally protected reserve that should allow 30 minutes of holding at 1,500 feet above an alternate. That last portion is sacred. Dipping into it triggers emergency calls. The system builds safety margins, but those margins can evaporate when weather shifts quickly, and every other aircraft is also looking for a safe haven. Weather turns nasty. Approaching Singapore, the crew were told to hold at PASPU as tailwinds made their runway unsafe, and thunderstorms blocked both the airport and usual alternates. A TC switched to runway 02L. The captain took the controls while the first officer reprogrammed the approach. On the ground, weather worsened fast. Heavy rain, shifting gusts, and visibility down to 500 meters. 2 planes ahead abandoned landings, and ATC soon halted all arrivals. The 777's fuel cushion shrank quickly, burning 100 to 130 kilograms per minute. More during go-arounds. The diversion dilemma. The captain now faced a crucial decision. They could continue holding in hopes the airport reopened or divert while there was still a safe fuel margin. Batom looked closest, but there was a problem. The airport was not fully certain it could accept an aircraft as large as a 777. Smaller airports must confirm firefighting capacity, ground support, and parking space before accepting such diversions. That coordination takes time, and time was now measured in precious kilograms of fuel. By 4:46 p.m. Singapore time, after buying a few extra minutes with a 360-degree orbit over the hold, the captain chose to divert to Batam. Controllers vectored the jet south. Unfortunately, the thunderstorms had beaten them there too. Heavy rain and gusty tailwinds were now over the island, and the official clearance to accept a wide-body jet was still pending. Minimum fuel, then mayday. Fuel had dropped to around 4,500 kilograms when the first officer made the formal call: minimum fuel. This is not an emergency declaration, but a warning to air traffic control that any further delay will become critical. Nothing changed. 2 minutes later, the captain escalated to the highest level. Mayday, fuel. That declaration immediately cut through the bureaucracy. Controllers stopped waiting for administrative approvals and cleared the aircraft toward Batum. Yet Bottom's weather was now ugly. Tailwinds gusting up to 30 knots, 3 times the airline's limit. The crew tried a non-precision VOR approach to runway 22, but abandoned it at about 1,600 feet because it was simply unsafe. They swung around, hoping to capture the ILS from the opposite direction, but fuel levels were now dire and cockpit workload had skyrocketed. The captain was both flying and handling radios, a demanding combination when every second counts. Chaotic approaches and go-arounds. The first ILS approach came in too steep and fast. The autopilot flashed no autoland, and with only 1,000 feet left, the captain went around, burning about 1,500 kilograms of fuel they couldn't spare. The next try to runway 04 was rushed and unstable, with storms nearby and a sink rate warning sounding. The captain had to go around again, and fuel was now believed to be under 1,000 kilograms. Dangerously close to empty. The final, desperate landing. With fuel nearly gone, the captain told controllers there'd be no more maneuvers. They'd land on runway 22 despite the tailwind. Luck helped. The storm shifted, leaving a safe 6-knot tailwind. The crew set up a low-fuel emergency landing with flaps 20 to keep fuel pumps covered. At 5:19 p.m., after an hour of holds, diversions, and 3 failed approaches, Flight 319 touched down safely on Batam's runway 22, with likely under 1 ton of fuel, far below normal reserves. What investigators found? The report blamed fast worsening weather. Storms blocked both the destination and alternates, and delays clearing Batam for a 777 cost precious fuel. The captain's push to reach Singapore and decision to hold, not divert early, left little margin. Climate change was noted as making storms more intense and unpredictable. Investigators found no rule violations. The flight was legal and emergency calls were proper. Singapore Airlines responded by improving training on fuel planning, alternate selection, and quick decision-making in changing weather. The event is now part of simulator practice. Lessons in the sky. Pilots should divert early before fuel margins vanish. Storms can change fast and leave few options. Managing workload matters too. The captain both flying and handling radios added stress when calm coordination was critical. Air traffic delays at alternate airports can worsen fuel shortages. For passengers, minimum fuel and mayday fuel are safety alerts, not signs the plane will fall from the sky. They're structured calls to protect everyone when fuel runs low. A close call with a safe ending. Flight 319 landed safely with no injuries and an intact jet, but it came dangerously close to running out of fuel. Long flights aren't just autopilot. They demand constant planning, quick adaptation, and tough calls under pressure. When weather delays or diversions happen, crews are protecting safety margins passengers never see. It's better to reach Plan B with fuel left than chase Plan A to empty tanks. On that stormy October night, training, experience, and some luck kept 280 people safe. A sharp reminder that the sky always has the last word. And that's the incredible story of Singapore Airlines Flight 319. If you found this video fascinating and you love learning what really happens behind the cockpit door, don't forget to hit that, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video. Safe travels and happy landings.